In this video the pilot did not get enough lift and fell to the ground just right after takeoff. No headwind and he just switched to a Tor 13 after flying a 15-meter Rapido. He had more than 1000 skydives on high performance wings but still new to speed flying. What made him crash, beside the circumstances with no headwind, was in my opinion the inexperience in speed flying. This has been a topic since forever. Skydivers who just dive into speed flying because they think it's the same thing or pretty similar. I find it good that this pilot at least started with a 15-meter Rapido and not 8 to 9 meter wings like some others do. But that's still not the safest way to enter the sport in my opinion. And you can see he's missing the experience already in taking off by making some severe mistakes. The first mistake he made was to immediately sit into the harness, which is the first thing you learn when you start paragliding. When taking off in sketchy situations or where the terrain is not that steep, you should remain in upwards position so you can potentially start running again if you get sink. Second mistake was to grab the whole risers instead of staying on the brakes. I see this happen often in inexperienced pilots when things start getting tricky or they don't feel comfortable anymore as soon as wingovers start getting higher. I still remember it took me over 3 months of intense paragliding to stop the bad habit of grabbing my risers in wingovers. With hands on his risers he can't generate lift. Otherwise, applying some brakes could maybe have generated that bit of extra lift needed. Last mistake I can see, or we better not call it a mistake, but just a safety measure for prevention. We can see on his right side he has a more forgiving terrain without stones, while on his left side the terrain changes with very sharp stones. If he already had the option, I'd always take off on the more forgiving side, as there is always a possibility for you to simply trip and fall to the ground, especially with no headwind. Here we have a close call due to no communication about landing plan. It always looks pretty far away from the fisheye lens of the GoPro, but that definitely was pretty near as both pilots did not see each other. When flying with friends and taking off at the same time, discuss landing plans first, as from which direction you will come in. Here we have a minor crash due to a bad pre-flight check caused by accumulated exhaustion after a 4-hour hike combined with bad wind at the takeoff and inexperience, as this was pilot's third flight with a speedwing. He launched with the brake wrapped around the lines, and when he realized he got fixated only on that problem, what made him fall instead of aborting the launch and fix it. Nothing crazy here, but could have been way worse on rocks. A reminder to look for a safe launch area whenever it's possible, as you might trip or fall to the ground.
I'm okay. Woo!
This is my crash where I landed inside a lake. It looks worse than it was, as I just tripped and fell to the ground because of the water resistance while running, so nothing happened. We went for an early hike and fly, with the mission in our head to swoop the lake at the landing and touch the water with my feet. Before starting for the hike, we checked for water height, and to our surprise, compared to a few days ago, the water has risen to a very high point, leaving only a very small area to land. Usually around this season you have plenty of space. I wanted to swoop that lake so bad that I said I will try it anyways, but also checked for a plan B, as I was already pretty sure that I would overshoot it. The water was only around 20 cm high alongside the whole cliffs. So I came up with a plan B, landing parallel to the rocks where the water was not high, which I ended up doing in the end. From the perspective of the camera, it looks like I've hit the rocks, but I didn't. Maybe I just touched them, because I wanted to land as near as possible to them, because I knew the water was not very high there. The takeaway I can give you here is, if you plan on doing certain things where your success rate is limited, like here with a very small landing area, you should always come up with a plan B. In my scenario, what if I overshoot it? I guess the pilot had fear of overshooting the landing field, and from the audio he starts pumping the brakes and stalls it. The landing area definitely wasn't ideal, and this can happen, so an airbag might help in those situations. L'ho detto. Now I'm not 100% sure about this one, but for me it looks like the pilot lost too much energy by staying too long on the brakes while he was generating lift and preparing for a barrel roll. Also, he releases both brakes to grab the rears in the most crucial part where the wing is upside down, so he's not stabilizing the wingtips in that moment. Not sure what happened after, as it looks like the wing had already recovered completely, probably overreaction after the initial shock, as the fluid is a very spicy wing. Here we have a pilot taking off with a thick fog layer underneath, which is never a good idea. Sometimes you get a hole to fly through, but if the layer is thick, you can lose your orientation completely and it gets extremely dangerous. That's why you should never fly through it. Now I think this is an older crash, not sure how good those wings glided in the past, but if I found myself on top while it's getting dark and I absolutely don't want to hike down, or in this case to ski down, I would always just glide out straight far enough to make it to this point where the fog is no longer present. Still, beside this option, the pilot definitely made the right decision to emergency land and not fly through it, as that would probably mean a certain crash with complete loss of orientation. What follows now are a few close calls and reminders to watch your wingspan, especially on parakites, as they have a significant bigger aspect ratio as most speed wings, which can also make a difference of a few meters. So this was part 4 of the crash compilation series. Thanks to everyone who shared their crashes publicly. There's absolutely nothing to be ashamed of if you crash. It happens, even to the most experienced pilot. Huge respect to everyone who shares their crashes openly. Your honesty helps others learn, grow and fly safer. And always remember, there's nothing worth dying for in the sky. So have fun and fly safe.